Welcome, everybody. We're going to hear a few testimonies from our good friend Kevin, who's been with our UncorkGenius program since its beginning in 2018. And he also was on the ground floor when we started our healing mentoring program, which we call Uncork Elevate.
Yeah, and it's been great getting to know you over the years. I came with a few simple questions, as you know, 3 main areas with God and self and others. How did your relationship with God start to change? What was it like when we first started to talk and you first started to grapple with this healing stuff? And then how did it start to, I guess, alchemize over time to where it is now?
Well, I've grown into a deeper security of relationship with God on a deeply personal level, especially regarding my identity, my personality. Growing up, I was kind of the black sheep of the family, and there was a lot of heavy-handedness in the parenting and not a lot of grace. And that really colored my relationship with God, colored how I perceived him, how I saw Jesus. Working with you guys has really helped to kind of rinse away some of the debris, some of the religious baggage, some of the heaviness. And I really have grown to where I feel like I'm really being brought into sonship out of the whole slavery mindset.
How did prayer change for you as this process progressed? How was it before? And then how did it gradually go into a different modality?
Just getting more comfortable with what God feels about me, what he thinks about me, has brought me to where prayer isn't even prayer anymore, honestly. I talk to God all the time, even about the most mundane, insignificant things. And it just comes out effortlessly. And it's not a task, it's not a duty. I think it's growing into what he wants, is that we just constantly are in communication.
It's like breathing.
That's a good way to put it.
I think one thing that's hard for all of us is to realize that God's the author of our personality. And so we just have to let him love us, and then our personality emerges as it's supposed to.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. How would you say your relationship with yourself changed? And we talk about this all the time in the mentoring program, as you know, but if your relationship with God is distant, your relationship with yourself is also going to be somewhat distant. So how did that change inside happen to how you relate with yourself, how you feel about yourself, what your self-image is like?
Yeah, well, getting to really understand what God thinks of me and how God feels about me has completely changed how I view myself. In the church world, there's a kind of a color by numbers grid, and I didn't always find really a place for my identity there, my personality there. In a lot of ways, it felt like I was supposed to be someone else, but God has just really kind of completely wiped that out. I just have a better sense of who I am and what he thinks of that, and it's all good. Personality-wise, I'm a little on the fringe and not very run-of-the-mill, I guess. And he's let me know that that's exactly what he wants.
That's how he made you. That's actually your genius instead of your flaw.
Right.
So the good news of God is you get to be somebody completely different and not be yourself. All right, let's close this out. That's a great testimony.
So the last category, predictably, is how did this change how you relate to other people and specifically community? Because one of the cool things that I've seen about you, and this is where the big fruit has honestly come, and I expect more and more to happen, is as your relationship with yourself changed, your relationship with others changed, and then your confidence started to grow, and you really started to share more of yourself. Like you started to share your creativity, you started to share your thoughts. You're kind of a theology person, so you started to share your knowledge. What was that like over time?
It was just something that kind of organically developed as I got more comfortable in my own skin. Things just started coming out. Personality started flowing more. Comfort within connection, within community started blooming.
So I want to note that Kevin has become a small group leader a couple of times within our group. He's written a book since we've known him. He's shared a bunch of music that he's written and also started a really great relationship with a new church. We all know that Uncork, we're kind of like, well, the roots are actually more important than the fruit. So if you're feeling like you're not stable with God, we don't want you to focus on the results more than the roots and the reasons why. But when the fruits start happening, it's pretty cool too. Plus, there's been a shift in your physical health.
I had quite a bit of like chronic fatigue symptoms, some mystery symptoms, and just not very good health in general. And that has really started to mend, probably as a direct result of my relationship with God and my relationship with myself.
I'm thinking as well, and I love that physical journey that you've been on, because all of a sudden you're walking and then you're, doing yoga, and some people will be scandalized by that. Then you're doing other things. We actually happen to believe that anything can be sanctified. So if you want to have more of a conversation and you're someone that has some questions about what are you allowed to do as a Christian, we welcome that communication.
The short answer is anything you and God agree on.
Yeah. So that said, one of the things I keep thinking about with you is how the first time I asked you to be a cohort leader, you turned me down. And over time, you've become one of the main people that people connect with for prayer and other things. You want to talk about what that felt like?
This is true. This is 4 years ago. I was among a group of people you asked to be leaders, and I was really overwhelmed. And I wanted to say yes, but I couldn't because it was just too much, and it kind of scared me. And now I honestly don't think anything of it. It's easy. You guys have taught me that all that's expected is that I show up and I be myself and just let God be God. And I don't have to carry the burden. I don't have to make things happen. And that's 80% of just walking with God, is just being there.
Yeah, I think there's a real unhealthy thing in many places in Christianity that assume either implicitly or explicitly that your core self, your main personality, is somehow bad. Even if it's not spoken on paper, there's a sort of expectation that you're supposed to be something like a stormtrooper in God's army, instead of what our group is like, which is a bunch of people in the rebellion where we're all different. Some are like Wookiees, some are like robots, some
There's
are
a lot of difference in UncorkGenius. It's pretty fun for that reason.
And I see, Kevin, your life, and especially the past few years, as a type of an announcement that the core self that God created is good and needs to be celebrated. And you get the right as God's kid to be God's kid. And at the center, that's something that God designed. It's not something that you manufactured because you're in rebellion. And that's not spoken of in many places, but the implicit atmosphere is there. Like somehow you're just this piece of trash and you just be grateful that God is somehow healing you. But I see it more like what Jesus said, which was, you abide in the vine, that's you and God together, you're friends, God is leading, and then the tree bears fruit. And you've borne a lot of fruit, as you said, very organically and naturally by allowing God to love you, just starting with the core part of you and being yourself with God. And then all those places that need healing naturally flow out. And then you start doing more music online, and you start writing books, and you start leading small groups, and you start finding a church where your personality is welcome as it is, and you start from that point. In other words, the whole process is inside out. And much of Christianity is a type of outside in. When you can get your act together, then God accepts you, and that's really toxic. God likes to heal people starting from who they really are, as God sees them, and not the other way around.
Yeah, well, I came to you guys initially for some specific healing, some emotional healing, some physical healing. And what I ended up with was just a new depth of knowing God in general. And it's kind of like in the Gospels. People would come to Jesus to be fed. People would come to Jesus to be healed. But what they got was Jesus. They met him, and there was so much more than just what they were after.
That's a wonderful way to put it. And I'm really proud of that in a certain way, that it's coming out of your mouth that way, because that's exactly what we want for
Absolutely true.
Yeah.
It's great having you in the group, Kevin.
It's been great. It's been great being in the group. The whole of Uncork, you guys are all my tribe. I don't know where I'd be or what I'd do without any of you. It's all good.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming and talking to us, and we're excited to share your story. We might actually interview Kevin about his book at some point.
Oh, yeah.
So coming soon.
Sounds
Yeah.
good.
All right. Blessings.